Hi everyone, how are we all? And welcome to another beautiful morning on Massage 2 ABB in Update 5. Today we're going to look at two things, circles and the new foundation or object pivoting system. This system is quite simple, but it has allowed us to create circles in Update 5 in extremely easy ways. We can easily build circles in Satisfactory Update 5 now. It's very simple. Note, we have build modes: default, zoop, and vertical. Zoop allows us to build foundations in an allotment of 10 horizontally, and the same for vertical. So we begin with placing our foundation above our original starting position. We can now hold down left control. One click of the mouse wheel will pivot once. And as you can see, the more you pivot, the more we turn. This new pivoting system in Satisfactory Update 5 gives us a 360-degree system, allowing us to build the circles. So, we start with on pivot 1. We lay the foundation down. At this point, we can change the build mode from default to zoop. Zoop will allow us to build up to 10 foundations. So 10 that way, 10 that way, 10 that way, and 10 that way. Now, we can remove our center point foundation, put in our original foundation, hold down control, and it snaps to the pivot we just had selected. As you can see here, when we go to do the second foundation without holding down control, it wants to snap to the foundation below. We simply hold down control and it snaps to our previously selected pivot. We now use the mouse wheel again, pivot once, and place the foundation. Note, if you still have zoop selected at this stage, you actually need to click twice. So again, we can go out 10 in each direction. And now it's just a rinse and repeat. You can see here now, if I hold down control, I've actually lost my original pivoting position. This can sometimes happen. Not sure why. If it's a bug, or if it's a feature, let me know in the comments below. However, we can simply rotate our pivot back to the original position. But you can see that it's starting to get a little bit messy. This is why I prefer to remove at least the first ring of foundations we have created, so that we can always have a clear view of the foundation we are working with. If you run into trouble and can't remember your pivot, let's say you've lost it, you've had to go and do something else, real life gets in the way, you can simply get the pivot close to where you think it should be, click once whilst zoop is active, and drag it out. You can see there that we still have a gap, so that is incorrect. So we can right click, hold down control, pivot back in the other direction, and go back out. As you can see here, we've done this pivot. So again, right click, pivot back in the other direction, and there we go. We now know that that's where we need to be. However, it's important to put down the center foundation and then zoom from there so that we keep all our foundations at the same length. And with the magic of editing, we can now see that we have our complete circle. This is where personal preference really comes in and what you really want to use your circle for. As you can see, there are many overlapping foundations. Maybe you don't want them to. That's simple. We can take out every second foundation here, and we could do something similar like this. As you can see, I've removed every second foundation. This can be helpful when trying to line things up like constructors. Say we want to put our constructor there. Whereas if we came into an area like this, we end up having to fight a little bit to try and get it on the right foundation. Whereas as you can see, doing it this way on the evenly spaced out foundations, it can become quite simple. So what do we do about the clipping? Well, we had the option there of removing foundations we no longer needed in the circle. Or we can go into the new Satisfactory customizer system. We have several different options here now. However, when it comes to clipping, I find that concrete is the best. Simply hold down the left mouse button with the concrete foundation selected, and we can drag it around, merging all of our foundations basically into one. You can see here that it's not getting all of the foundations, simply because we have so many, and we need to go closer in order to paint them more. Or you might find that we're simply stuck like this and it's refusing to paint the foundation below. Why is it doing that? Simply because there's so many. You can see here when you try to delete it, I can't actually select the foundation I want to paint. This is where removing foundations you don't require comes in handy, and painting afterwards, if you can do it, is of a benefit. Because you can see here now that while still clipping, from a distance or up close, it is still much more minimal than our foundations, I should say our original foundations around it. Now, it's important to note though, that if we go to paint our concrete, let's say use my nice blue, it does tend to give us more of a clipping effect, because when we paint it, it adds the black line back around the foundation. So, do we now have perfect circles without having to use mods or a website to create our circle? Yes, we do. If you come out here, you can see 11 foundations out gives us this point here, where you can see that the foundations have merged together. Here, we can add walls. And you can see that it's coming together quite nicely. This is as close as you can get to a perfect circle without extending the foundations out to the 12th position. But now you can see that we're getting a little bit of separation. That's fine, because in Satisfactory Update 5, under Architecture, we have beams. Metal beams, painted beams, columns, big columns, little columns, so many more building options. We can either go, hey, I don't like the fact that I have that there. We can simply place a beam. Position the beam, click once so that it's positioned, and then we can drag up. This now places a beam and gives us a solid connection on both sides. And again, we can do it with the painted beam. Make sure we have it in position, click once, drag it to where we want it to be, and now we have solid position. Going out further from here does start to cause difficulty. We can go out further with our circle if we wish. My preference is really to stick to the 11th, simply because we don't need beams, but it really depends on what we're going to be building. On the 12th, we can place beams, which just allows us to do this with the walls. We go into our walls. I can now select the options we had previously, or we have two new windows, the hex frame and the full frame. Honestly, I quite like the full frame, because now we can come in and place it here, and by having the beams in place, we hide the fact that we have small gaps or clipping. So on our 12th foundation here with beams, you can see that we have really nice windows. On the 11th, if we try to place the same window, we have a little bit of an overlap. So again, personal preference. Do you just want walls that overlap or walls with beams? It's completely up to you. Please consider liking the video, subscribing, and hitting that notification bell for future videos. You can also follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Reddit, where I not only post screenshots of projects that I'm working on, but there's all sorts of things that just don't make it to YouTube.